Thank you so much, Rowan, for the kind invitation, and I'm really honored and thrilled to be here. I assume I'm in an audience of fellow geeks, so I'm very happy to be part of this community. So I will share my screen straight away. What I decided to do today, it's a little bit risky, but we have not much time. I'd love to have a lot of chat and not one-way discourse. But there's a ton of stuff I want to cover. So what I've decided to do is give you kind of an overview of our work in the urban data science realm and some why we came to more of a data science approach to our urban analytic work. And then I want to talk about Berkeley and data science pedagogy at Berkeley. And the reason I want to do this today is because I want us to do it at the University of Toronto. I really would love us to bring a little flavor of Berkeley to Toronto. So I am doing my pitch for data science, and I hope this can be the beginning of a beautiful new conversation about data science at Toronto. So, so here's the work from my lab, which is called the Urban Displacement Project, and it's now it's a collaborative project between UC Berkeley, where I'm an emerita, and University of Toronto, where I hope to be doing more of this work in the future. I still have numerous staff and students associated with this lab in Berkeley, and I have to start fresh and build it up here in Canada. But for various reasons, we got very interested in neighborhood change in the form of gentrification, displacement, and exclusion. And a lot of my work is around climate change interventions like new transit lines and what that does to the neighborhoods around them in the form of gentrification, displacement, and exclusion. And we started about, I guess, 15 years ago now, mapping these patterns, and then quickly realized we could do it all over the world using census data. And we've had various universities collaborating with us and uploading their own maps and so forth. And we would love to grow it even more. And just as a sneak preview, here's the map that my undergraduate data science student at Berkeley finished yesterday for me of Toronto and just displacement and gentrification in Toronto. The purple, just to orient you to our maps, the darker purple means the more gentrified it is. And the darker orange means the more exclusive it is. So not surprisingly, you have downtown Toronto is a sea of displacement gentrification surrounded by exclusion, a ring of exclusion, and then exclusion going up into the north, and then some interesting patches of gentrification in the northwest and northeast of the region. And there's already some great work on neighborhood change in Toronto, by the way, done by David Holchansky's lab. But so this is our take on it, and I'm interested to vet this and ground truth it with you all, because this is something that we do with all of our data work. This is what we've done recently is we put up all our code online, open source. We have an open source code for all of our gentrification typologies in the United States, and now we'll be posting this code for Canada, which is based on the Canadian census as well. So you can do it for your favorite Canadian city as well. So this was sort of our move towards open source, and our ethos is let's make it and give it away. But I want to talk a little bit about our movement towards more of a data science approach. So we have always used very traditional analytic tools. We use regression to predict the areas that are going to gentrify in the future. We use cluster analysis to divide communities into different types of change. But one of the things that we have found over time is that our predictions are not very good. So in this map, anything in lighter purple is what's predicted to gentrify in the future. And if we look at a map of this in the 1990s, and we look at where we predicted to gentrify, it turns out that only a very small share of our predictions come true in the 2000s. So we usually get it wrong. And in fact, if you put this in a kind of matrix of what we predict, and how comparing that to the actual, we can use the, we have data on actual, so we can look at what actually happened. We're predicting about, we get about 90% rate of the actual gentrified tracts. So the ones that do gentrify, we knew they were going to gentrify. But we also say that a huge number are going to gentrify that don't. So we have a false positive problem. So this is what we've been dealing with. This is why we had to move to data science, to try and wrestle with our false positive problem. And we're using a variety of different things to kind of get at that. I'm going to talk today quickly about using geotag tweets, and then also using machine learning. And these are, some of this is experimental, some of this is already published in journals. So in terms of the tweets, so this is our exercise in using geotag tweets. And so one of the things about tweets, so we use a tweet database that's by my colleagues at the University of Kentucky. It's called Dolly. They have a complete database of geotag tweets from about 2012 to the current day. And so it gives the latitude and longitude of every tweet, and you can take those tweets then and use an algorithm to define whether people are tweeting from their home or whether they're visiting another neighborhood. So, and this is just a schematic to say, so we can say whether you're home, because we define that based on frequent tweeting at different times of day and night. We define where they live, and then we can look at what their neighborhood is, and then we can look at when they're tweeting from outside the neighborhood. And this is kind of interesting because it allows you to kind of get a different feel for how people are moving through the city. So, a lot of our data is just on where people sleep at night. That's what census data is. You fill out the census of the place that you live. That's where you are at night. But where are you during the day? And that's what Twitter data can tell us about. So that we thought, well, maybe those outsiders, maybe those, when you go to another area to tweet, or when you go to another area just to visit it and you happen to tweet there, maybe that area is changing, or maybe there's something about that area that's hot. Maybe jet fuel is there. So here's what our Twitter map of San Francisco looks like, with designating home and neighbor and outsider tweets. And so the red is home, the orange is neighbor. So when you're just outside of your house or your home census tract, but you're visiting some other locations. And then outsider, when you are not in your home area at all. And so then, so you get a feeling for those outsider tweets. And one of the interesting things you can see here is that it takes the form of the roadways in San Francisco. So you can see the major arterials like Geary Boulevard and the major highways like 101, if you know the region. So that to us validated our method. We are doing a pretty good job, because nobody lives on a highway, obviously. So we can then use this then to discern some urban patterns. And so this is just, by the way, a 1% sample of the tweets that we had. Our database for San Francisco, 3 years of tweeting in San Francisco, is 55 million tweets that are geotagged. I can't show you 55 million tweets on a map of San Francisco, or I will blow up everything. So this is a 1% sample. It's a great big data set. So one of the interesting things then, if you can figure out from people's tweeting patterns where they live and where they're visiting, you can associate them with characteristics in their neighborhood, and you can say something then about them, presuming that they take on some of the characteristics of their neighborhood. And there's a potential for an ecological fallacy here, but still, it is a rough proxy for what these people are like. So looking here, for instance, at where people live and what the educational level is in those home tracts. We assign them those education levels, and then we look where they go. So the low educated people here are going really to the working class areas, the factory areas of the region. The people that are coming from high educated areas are going to the center of the region. They're going to the Berkeley campus, and they're going to the Stanford campus, if you know the region. So, so this is really interesting then too, because then you can start to you know, to say something about income and changing neighborhoods. So when we're talking about gentrification, we're really interested in whether it's high educated people going to a neighborhood or high income people. And so we can sort of start to approximate that through this method. So we used this then, and we linked it to our gentrification typology, and we looked, and we found out that where areas that were gentrifying, there was a disproportionate share of non-neighbor or outsider tweets. So people from outside were coming to these gentrifying areas disproportionately, and we modeled this, and it all kind of it all turned out to be significant. And so what we used this data for is to identify areas that weren't being picked up by our conventional methods, but you could see by this Twitter activity, and it's the areas here in Hatching, that there is some sort of extra activity, extra attention going to these neighborhoods, and maybe that is a warning sign that the areas are about to change. And so we're hoping that this then can help us get rid of our false positive problem. So quickly here, just another quick line of research for us is using machine learning then to improve our predictions. And so here what we're doing is taking our descriptions, our descriptive data on what's gentrified in areas like San Francisco and New York, and then we're using, you know, we're using patterns over several decades. What we train on the early decades, and then we test on the more recent decades, and then we can see if we can improve our predictions and maybe get rid of some of those false positives. And one of the interesting things we're finding in this work is that when we combine cities, we have a higher prediction rate. We're doing better. So that makes it super interesting. It sort of implies that these types of neighborhood change are generalizable across cities, which is interesting for us. And then you can do all kinds of analysis, spatial analysis too, on the false positives and false negatives. So our light green here are our false positive problems that we've had, and so we're looking then about, you know, is there something about spatial contingency then, and spatial spillovers that is causing that false positive? It looks like it's going to gentrify. It doesn't, but maybe that's because it's next to an area that's actually gentrifying. So here we're using some kind of traditional spatial analytic techniques and to test to add to our models that we're using machine learning for. So anybody who wants to help me with this, I would be very happy to welcome you into my lab. My undergraduate genius computer science, data science major at Berkeley got a job at DoorDash. He got a job at DoorDash, not delivering, but doing the coding. And so I'm desperately in need of help fixing my false positive problem. So just one more example of using big data. This is work we did for Facebook, funded by Facebook. And so this up here in the upper part of this map is the Facebook campus, which is right next to these purple areas, which are gentrifying areas, low-income neighborhoods that have been absolutely transformed by the 20,000 employees that landed at Facebook. So Facebook actually hired us to measure conditions around the campus and you know, and recommend what they could do to stabilize those neighborhoods. We actually worked with a group of high school students in East Palo Alto, and we had them. I'm not going to go into this for shortage of time here, but we first of all, we had them go around and gather data on the neighborhood. And we had them interview their parents and grandparents and so forth about housing conditions. And then we taught them some data science. So we took the Foundations of Data Science curriculum, Data 8, and we transformed it for high school students, and we taught them to do some basic visualizations of the housing conditions in their area. But I also want to mention that in this work, we also returned to the Twitter data. And one of these things about having geotagged tweets is that you know where people are tweeting from. So one of the things we did is we took this is a map of housing price appreciation that we created right next to Facebook campus. And then we mapped the tweets that were going on. And because one of the interesting things that you can do with Twitter data is do some content analysis and do some analysis of the text to figure out what's going on. And we thought, well, here what we can do is actually map the tweets around campus and see if we can kind of characterize the neighborhood tensions. And if you read some of these tweets, you will see that there are tech people. The one in the upper left-hand corner is somebody actually working at Facebook who tweeted, and the top two are ones at the workplace, and the ones in blue are ones people that live in the neighborhood. That many of them don't seem very happy if you read the tweets with Facebook. So this, I thought, was going to have tremendous potential for really analyzing community sentiments around tech campuses, but I could not get this through our ethics board. So just a cautionary tale. You know, you can do this work in aggregate, but much of our work is spatially very fine-grained, and we, you know, we want to look at a parcel level, and there are incredible violations of privacy that happens once you assign a tweet to a parcel that, and you also know the housing value of it. So this is as far as we went with this analysis. It was killed. So okay, so just one last piece of work that we're working on right now is we have SafeGraph mobility data. So we have device counts, and we're using this to look at COVID and COVID recovery. This is a New York project, and so we're looking at where people are checking in. This is our analysis that is basically looking at concentrations of activity in the most recent COVID period versus the early COVID period to see what areas are bouncing back. And the areas in purple here are bouncing back. There's a higher location quotient. That's a measure we use in geography. What seems to be going on here is that the outer areas are continuing to be quite vital, and the central areas like Manhattan are not doing so well. So this is I think something we need to do this for Canada as well, and we have some access to data like this for Canada. We've had Anita McGann in her shop with her doctoral students has worked on doing some work with cubic data, mobility data from cubic. And one of the things we want to do is negotiate an agreement with cubic so that all of us at the University of Toronto can have access to fabulous data like this that can really measure urban patterns over time. So I'm going to speak briefly about the school cities, and then I'm going to turn to the Berkeley subject. Rowan, I don't know whether you think that we should take any questions on the urban data part of this talk, or hold off till the end.
Let's just, does anyone have any pressing concern, any pressing questions, if you can just raise your hand. Otherwise, we can just do it all at the end, which might make. All right, I think we'll just keep going. Press on.
Okay. Okay, so at the School Cities, we have a terrific opportunity to engage, to lift up data science and to build urban data science. So I want to highlight a couple of our programs that we have already started. So we just 2 days ago launched our new Urban Challenge grant program. It's for multidisciplinary research on climate justice and cities. Should be led by a faculty member or postdoc. We're hoping to support a wide variety of projects in this area, and we're really keen, of course, to support data science related projects. We also have what we call a methods atelier. It's a graduate student fellowship program. It's for master's and PhD students who want to have their own project working on any urban topic. Although we're interested right now, our theme is climate and justice, so we're particularly interested in that, but we're open to other projects. And so you propose a project, and then we will meet all spring to really dig into methods from different disciplinary perspectives. So what we're really hoping is to get folks from the humanities and mingling with data scientists and engineers and so forth, to have a really rich interdisciplinary dialogue about methods and how we might better do mixed methods. So that fellowship program's on our website, small grants, and then a seminar. We've launched the Urban Data Center under engineering professor Mark Fox. One of the aspects of that center is that, again, we want to negotiate data use agreements with various data for good types of places, tech companies that have a data for good division, and so that we can make this data available for everybody at the university. And then we have other plans too. We'd love to do a data science core, which would be placing young data scientists at public and nonprofit organizations in order to beef up their data capacity under the mentorship of data science faculty. We'd like to do some youth engagement like that program I mentioned we did near Facebook. And then we're also looking at launching some online certificate programs in urban data science. Okay, and this is an example of the certificate program we ran at Berkeley, Data for Housing. You can see it at dataforhousing.org. Okay, so Berkeley. Let's talk about Berkeley for a moment. So this is Zellerbach Auditorium. It's a huge auditorium. It seats 1,800 people, and here in front of the on the stage is Professor Ani Adhikari, who Rowan knows, is one of the pioneers behind the data science revolution at Berkeley. So why are these students in the Performing Arts Auditorium? It's because there is no room big enough on campus to hold all the students who want to take foundations of data science. So, so about half of Berkeley's undergraduates have now taken the Foundations of Data Science course. And why is that? It's because it's not only, just for stats, folks, it's all of the social sciences, many of the humanities, many of the professional schools have all said, hey, you don't have to take stats, you can take Data 8 instead. So data8.org is the course I'm talking about here. And that has opened up a whole new pathway into data science, either the major or the minor. For people that take this class, they get introductory statistics and introductory Python programming. They realize that, hey, this is really accessible material. They get excited, and then many of them just go directly into the data science minor or the data science major. So much that we have 800 data science undergraduate majors per year at Berkeley, and about 1,000 data science minors. So how does an institutional transformation like this take place? How does something take root throughout a whole campus? Well, first of all, it's building a shared understanding of data science, that we're thinking about it's not just a new version of the old, but it's really a new way of thinking. It's a human science and a social science. It has sort of a normative foundation. So the way it's being taught is really with ethics embedded in it, and there are aspirations for kind of democratizing data that are really at its core, and it's happening very, very fast. And what Berkeley did was it went quickly to embed data science across many different disciplines, and it did this through a variety of different mechanisms. It created modules, just 1 to 3 classes in a conventional course, a long-standing course in, say, linguistics or in geology or in English, would have a 1 or 2 or 3 kind of workshops with the introduction to Python in it, and that would demystify data science for students, and then that it created a pathway into the minor. And then it created domains. So everybody majoring in data science has to have a domain. They basically have to have a specialization. So there's an urban science domain, which I created. There are a number of there are domains in the classics. There's domains in anthropology. There's domains in computational biology and so forth. So these then create mini specializations that allow people to engage with topics. And there's also a requirement for human context and ethics. So there's a history of technology faculty that teach classes, but then it's also being integrated into the technical classes. So there's ethics modules within all of the data science and computer science and stats classes now. And the way that this happens practically is by reaching out and building a coalition. And this is what was sort of the hard work. And this is where the Data Sciences Institute is now, I believe, is kind of figuring out what are the disciplines that are interested, going and meeting with them and really listening to them and hearing what their needs are and what their existing courses are, and then figuring out a way then to integrate that into a larger data science pedagogy. One way that you can persuade faculty to do this is to teach them how to do data science. So this is the summer workshop for faculty. And actually, I'm in this picture. I'm under that bar chart on the side. This is so funny. It just happened. I could grab this from some presentation, and it's this is the 2017 workshop, which I went to, or 2016 maybe it was, workshop which I went to, and where I learned Python. And so these summer workshops were the way to kind of demystify data science for faculty, and many faculty go out of this workshop and then convert their curriculum to be more data science friendly. And I did that exact same thing. So I took my Introduction to Urban Data Analytics course, which you can find at cp101.org. I took it. It was a visualization course. It was all 100% Excel based course, right? And the data science division worked with me to make modules that were taught, that converted my Excel labs to Python. And who wrote those modules? Undergraduates. Undergraduates do all the work at Berkeley. So they created these fabulous labs that now I've had hundreds of students learn from. So it's super exciting. And then to talk about graduate education, so then we took that undergraduate course, the Intro to Data Science, and began teaching the same course to graduate students who were afraid of Python. Now, most grad students have statistics. Most of them are very comfortable with statistics. They're required to take it, but few have Python. So here I am teaching a class of 45 grad students who are just getting their first Python. So we took the Data 8 curriculum, we converted it and used it for grad students, and it's enough to get them off and running, and it's actually up as an edX course, so they can, it's a flipped classroom format, so they learn it online and then come back and do the labs in person. And it's been enough to launch many of them into data science. And many of them then go on to take a certificate in applied data science, which would be another great thing to have at Toronto. Okay, so this all happens with the power of Berkeley students, undergraduate students who are developing all this course content for all the faculty. They're building and running the infrastructure. They do consulting, they do research projects with faculty, and keep it all going. So it's really a student-driven, bottom-up endeavor, which makes it all the more exciting. So I hope we can kind of generate that energy here at the University of Toronto. And here's your own Jupyter Hub, which the Berkeley folks helped get going for you guys. So with that, I'm going to wrap.
Thank you so much for that absolutely incredible talk. I can't believe you found ways to apply all your skills throughout all of these different spaces. That's just amazing and so inspiring. So thank you so much. I know we had a couple of questions in the chat, but we'll start with the one we'll record, which is our go-to question every time. It's okay if you don't have an answer prepared, but we'd like to know if there are any books that you'd recommend. It can be, it's allowed to say our own books if we have them. That's perfectly fine.
Well, my books are great, but I wouldn't recommend them. Here's my recommendation. I actually have it up because I've been reading it. It is by a Penn professor. It's free on GitHub. He made it free on GitHub. It's he ran a company called Urban Spatial, and it's a book on public policy analytics. And it's really about, he uses this in the Masters of Urban Spatial Analytics at Penn, and to teach the basics to students that know very little about data science and analytics. Sadly, Professor Stife died 2 weeks ago of cancer. So and in his memory, I hope you all will read his book. He was passionate about this work, and he died. He was only 38 years old. And brilliant innovator in data science.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I'm really drawn to the title already, and knowing that this is someone's legacy is really definitely very, very important as well. So we'll stop recording.